Well, good morning. My name's Steve, and I got to be Dwight's hospice chaplain. Talked with him once, and it was quite a talk. I learned a lot about this man, and that was wonderful to do that, and to get to meet Joan and know her a little bit. Second visit, we talked more, right? Yes, yeah. So that was cool. I want to open with a prayer. Would you bow your heads with me? God, thank you that we can be here together. Thank you that we can trust you to help us through this difficult time. I pray that you would be so close to each one here as they go through their loss, their grief in their own way, and that you would help us to support one another in this time, today and in the days to come. We thank you for your promise of life and life everlasting. And we trust you for all that we need this morning. Amen. I read the obituary, and it was very well done. I'd like to read it for you and have you listen, even though some of you may have worked very hard on it, so you're familiar with it. Because I think it gives us a wonderful snapshot of Dwight's life. Dwight L. Pratt, loving husband, father and grandfather, aged 75, passed away Thursday, August 19th. He was preceded in death by his mother, Mildred, his father, Lewis, and brother, Charles Thompson. He is survived by his beloved wife of 55 years, Joni, his children, Cheryl Mercer, Hank Elzinga, Bonnie and Dan Tanner, Randy and Emily Pratt, his grandchildren, Daniel and Alyssa, Jonathan and Allie, David, Jacob and Kaylee, Taylor, Andrew, Bethany, Mason, and Asher. Dwight most recently enjoyed working as the director of the Rockford Area Museum, where he coordinated the transition to the new museum building and encouraged community involvement. He served as vice president of marketing at Waxman Industries, was a merchandising manager at Wallahan Lumber, and created many great, entertaining life stories during his 10 years working as a buyer for Meyer, where he formed many lasting friendships with his coworkers and vendors. Dwight was an entrepreneur at heart and was the owner of various small ventures over the years, including a jewelry store that was located in the former Rockford Outlet Mall. He attended Wayne State University, where he met those that would become the gang, and be lifelong friends to him and his family. He started the Rockford Schools Steering Committee during the busing crisis in the early 80s, which started the seed for the Rockford Education Foundation. Dwight also helped organize a basketball game fundraiser where Eric Hipple, then Lions starting quarterback, played along with teachers against a local radio station to raise funds to support the schools. Dwight led the planning and managing of the very first community arts and crafts show at the old high school. Dwight always loved coordinating fun activities with his friends, kids, and later his grandchildren, including his family Easter Road Rally, the annual Guys Night Out, some of you are wearing shirts, events with his grandsons. Family was what mattered most to him. He loved his family dearly and cherished family get-togethers and simply spending time together. He enjoyed sharing the many stories of his life with his children and grandchildren. He was kind, compassionate, yet not afraid to speak his mind. Dwight encouraged his children and grandchildren's goals and talents and encouraged them in whatever they did. And my hope is that we can learn from his life and emulate him in the things he did well, and that can be a part of who you are. I want to share two scriptures. One is Psalm 23. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So I'm convinced that that is written both for those that have gone on. There's a foreverness, there's an eternalness to life beyond this life, and for those of us here who are passing through the valley of the shadow of death. We've experienced a loss, and that's hard, but it says God goes with us. Second is from John 14. These are the words of Jesus. He's speaking to his disciples, but I think he's speaking to us as well. And when he says, "Don't let your hearts be troubled," he doesn't mean don't be sad or don't be angry or don't be upset. He means know that there is something beyond what you're feeling that you can count on. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," he said. "You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Now that was Thomas that said that, but I think we could put Dwight in there and that would work too, right? We don't know the way. Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Philip sounds a little like Dwight too, I think. "Show us." Jesus answered, "Don't you know me, Philip, even after I have been among you such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, 'Show us the Father'? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me, or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. Very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. For my conversation with Dwight, I think he had the part about doing good things, doing great things right. He told me about how he wanted to be a person that did good things. And I believe that one can experience the Father through Jesus, even if the church has been disappointing. So I want to begin my remarks about Dwight by acknowledging you, all of you that are gathered here, and it's a full house. Wonderful. You are Dwight's family and his friends, and this is a difficult time. It's difficult because Dwight is gone and you are left with a plethora of feelings. I want you to know that whatever you're feeling, it's okay. If you are feeling sadness, that is okay. If you are feeling relief, that is okay. If you are feeling anger, that is okay. If you are feeling numb, that is okay. If you are feeling joy, that is okay. If you are feeling any of these or other things or all of these, or if you just don't know what to feel, that's okay. It is a difficult time, so don't waste any energy on trying to figure out what you feel or why you're feeling it. Just let it be. I had the pleasure of meeting Dwight once before he died. It was a good conversation. He made it clear that he was not religious. Yet he also made it clear that he has always strived to be an ethical person. He talked about the importance of being honest, something that I think is sadly lacking in our world today, maybe especially the business world that he was so much a part of. He talked about not taking gifts that could be, or they might appear to be, influencing his decisions. It was just not the right thing to do. He talked about being faithful to his wife, even when certain services were offered when he was traveling. It's more or less an expectation that he take those services, but he did not. It just wasn't the right thing to do. Boy, you're going to have to explain something to the kids afterwards, aren't you? Sorry about that. But it's important to know he just wasn't the right thing to do. He talked about seeing church leaders that just did not live up to the standards that they proclaimed. And for Dwight, he could not embrace a faith that allowed for this. It just wasn't the right thing to do. But there were some things that were the right things to do, like using his gifts of administration and charisma for the good of the company or the good of the community. The Rockford Area Museum was an example. There was a need in the community, and he stepped up because he could help, and he did help. He used his gifts. It was the right thing to do. Like the Eric Hipple basketball game to raise funds for the schools. There was a need. Dwight could help, and he could help meet it, and so he did. It was just the right thing to do. Like his family, the Easter Road Rally, the Guys' Night Out. Just examples of the importance of family to Dwight. So he did those things. They were just the right things to do. So I hope that you can remember him for who he was. And please, I am not saying that he was perfect. None of us are. But maybe you could learn something from Dwight, what he didn't do or what he did. Maybe you could carry on the tradition of avoiding the wrong thing and doing the right. Now, at this time, we're going to hear from 4 persons that have been selected by the family to share about Dwight's life. The first will be via a video, and it is Dwight's cousin Paul. After that, 3 others will share, and I think that's all in the program. After they have finished, there will be a period where anyone who wants can share a brief memory or thought. I would encourage you, because it's such a large group, that you come up and use the microphone, lean in. I would also encourage you, if you choose to do that, to limit your remarks to 1 minute or less so that we aren't here all day. But we're going to start with the video.
Dwight, he was much more than a cousin to me, and he was much more than the sum of all his parts. Dwight was much more than a cousin to me. Considering all the children my grandparents had, by the 3rd generation, there was just 3 of us cousins. My sister Diane, Dwight, and myself. Dwight's dad, Louis Pascal, named after his dad, was the oldest of 7 siblings, and like his brother Marcel Henri, or Hank, he was born in my grandmother's village of Oyer, France. And the relatives from France have sent their condolences to Joni and all the kids. There were many things my Uncle Louis and his son Dwight had in common. Uncle Louis was quiet. Dwight was quiet at the right times. They were both very smart, enjoyed people, both loved cutting-edge technology and gadgets. They enjoyed entertainment, particularly magic. They loved mental challenges, watching sports, and were neat and detailed, planning their next project or solution. They always enjoyed hosting and seeing the satisfaction of others. Depending on how people knew or interacted with Dwight, they may have seen just one slice of him. But there was a lot to Dwight and many pieces, and like I say, the sum was more than the whole. Dwight was very smart. Let's start off with, he was valedictorian at Frank S. Cody High School.
And I can't tell you how many times we played together. But he never got mad. I remember there in the later years, he would putt with one hand so he could hold his drink in the other hand. Funniest thing that ever happened on the golf course was we were playing in an outing, I think, and smoking our normal cigar during the golf outing. And as Al's turned the tee off, he lays his cigar on the ground, tees off, he bends over, he picks one up, gets back in the cart, and I was driving, and I see him put it up to his mouth, and all of a sudden he's coughing, and he's spitting, and he says, "This ain't mine." He picked up an old one that was laying there, stale. Joni's going to have to confirm this next one, okay? Because Al always joked about his eyesight. And he told me a long time ago that he was going to donate his eyes when he died to some poor soul. And the kicker was, whoever got his eyes would have to buy those glasses from Joni for big money. There's another dear old friend in the back of the room. Another funny story. We used to get business done, and then we'd go to lunch. And this was back in the day when it was all okay. Okay. Now you can't. Nowadays you can't do such things. But he gets business done with this old friend, and they leave the office and they get in a friend's truck, and the friend had a chip in the windshield. And Al's looking at that chip on the passenger side, and he goes, "You know, it won't be long, and that's going to run all the way across the windshield." He no sooner said that than that crack ran all the way across. And the funny part was, Al says, "Does that mean I had to buy my own lunch?" I could go on for probably a half hour. A dear friend, he had a great family, and I really appreciated the Pratt Gazette that I used to get at Christmas time, and I'll miss him. I loved him, and I'll miss him forever. Thank you all.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. If it's all right, we will play this particular eulogy at the end of the speakers. Alrighty, my name's John, one of the grandkids, one of the many, and I think we can all say it's hard to see Grandpa Bobo, and I think we even called him Bubba at one point. I know all of us out there had different names that we would call him: Dwight, Al, husband, dad. But what I think he was to all of us is a friend. One thing that Bobo and myself especially enjoyed doing together was watching sports. And while I think the whole family became Red Wings fans because of Grandpa, whether it was because he always had a game on, the one thing that I feel like we really bonded over together is we could watch anything together. And I know there were multiple times where I would have my family stay at Grandma and Grandpa's house because Grandpa and I were just watching a game. And it didn't matter who was on, it didn't matter what the score was, but we were watching the game and we were enjoying it together. And I truly think that's kind of what our bond was. And and then even when I was able to drive, I would go over, didn't have to burden the family to hang out the whole time. And I would just bring my schoolwork or my study materials and we'd watch a game. And while it probably didn't necessarily help my classes, it helped me, and I think Grandpa enjoyed it as well. And every time I came over, it seemed like Grandpa had a new story. And I think we all understand that and have seen that. One of those stories, which I always held near and dear, was when he would talk about his golfing days. And this one in particular is when he actually planned a surgery so that he could travel to Vegas. And I remember him saying, he said, I put the cane away, put the cane in the trunk, and grabbed the golf clubs out. And he went out and played one of the best rounds of his life. And is that a coincidence? I don't think so. It's just good planning. And one thing Bobo once said is, and this was from one of his other stories, is I think he was playing, it might have been up at Cedar Chase or something like that. And it was late, it was getting dark, and they wanted to finish their round. So they were coming up the 18th hole, and he said he couldn't see his ball. And he hit his tee shot, and I forgot who he was playing with, but clearly went right into the woods. And they drove up into the middle of Grandpa drove up into the middle of the fairway, and someone mentioned to him, what, your ball didn't go here? He said, well, why would I want to look for a ball where I don't want to find it? And I think that's pretty true, and I think we should all kind of take that as whether we're looking for enjoyment or just some resolve, is go to where you would want to find it, not necessarily where you don't want to. And I don't even know where I am on this, but so I guess it wasn't really until when I went to college that I realized the impact that Grandpa made on my life. And I was studying initially to be in genetics, and actually worked out and had an internship lined up, and decided that that wasn't what I wanted to do. And Grandpa looked at me and he said, you know, Ferris has a golf program. I know how much you love golf. And sure enough, here today I'm a golf professional and I love every minute of it. So just taking that advice and the suggestion to help me understand what I wanted to do. And so this is truly what I feel like Grandpa did so well for us here. He could connect with us. And that is, I mean, this is just my side of how he connected with me. But it's just that's who he was. He could talk to anyone and build that connection. I know, Grandpa, it's hard to imagine that you're not here in person, but I do know that you are watching over all of us. And as Grandpa once said, I'd rather be lucky than good, and I think we can all say we were lucky to know Grandpa. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bethany, one of the granddaughters. I'm going to sing a little song. It's actually one that Bobo introduced me to. It's Up on the Roof by the Drifters. One thing that me and Grandpa had a lot in common is our taste in music and shows. I've always been kind of an old soul, so Andy Griffith's show and things like the Drifters, the Temptations, those are all right up my alley. Yeah. There should be music coming eventually. This whole world starts getting me down, and people are just too much for me to face. I climb way up to the top of the stairs, and all my cares just drift right into space. On the roof, it's peaceful as can be, and there the world below can't bother me. Let me tell you now, when I come home feeling tired and weak, I go up where the air is fresh and sweet. Up on the roof, I get away from the hustling crowd and all that rattles noise down in the street. On the roof, the only place I know, where you just have to wish to make it so. Let's go up on the roof. At night the stars put on a show for free, and darling, you can share it all with me. I keep a telling you, right smack dab in the middle of town, I found a paradise that's trouble-free. Up on the roof. And if this world starts getting me down, there's room enough for two. Up on the roof. Up on the roof. Oh, come on, baby. Oh, come on, honey. Everything is alright.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Daniel. I'm the favorite, aka the oldest grandchild. Maybe not quite, but I can claim it. Dwight, Dwidge, Al, Dad, Grandpa, Bobo. He's a man of many names, who's not just known by many, but loved by many. Today I will be referring to him as I knew him, Grandpa. There's so many memories that I have with Grandpa that trying to narrow them down into a 2 to 5 minute speech was not easy, especially since I inherited his storytelling. But here goes. First story that comes to mind is from one of the guys' night out. For those of you that don't know, Grandpa would put on a guys' night out for the grandsons every year, as we reached the age where he could handle us on his own. We were on our way back from a weekend, and we stopped at a restaurant named Tony's on I-75 in Birch Run. After enjoying oversized portions of lunch, we all loaded up on mints as we headed out the door and piled back into the vehicle to continue on our way. Shortly after hitting the road, Grandpa asked for a mint. Jonathan and David were sitting in the seats directly behind Grandpa. David had a mint in his mouth that he spit out back into the wrapper and handed to Jonathan. Jonathan then proceeded to pass the mint up to Grandpa, who promptly put the mint in his mouth without hesitation. Hearing the chuckles from the back seat and not wanting to get into the satisfaction of grossing him out, Grandpa started saying how great the mint was, how he had never had a slimy mint before. The entire weekend, and in the years to come, Grandpa would always say how much he wanted another slimy mint from Tony's. I still can't tell the story without smiling. That story says so much about who my grandpa was. He was a stubborn man. He showed this by not wanting to give the satisfaction of grossing out over a pre-sucked on mint. He was a funny man. This was clear in the way he continued to bring it up for years to come. He was a loving man. This was evident in his actions. He didn't get upset or angry in this situation, although I'm sure he was grossed out by the fact that the mint had been in another mouth. Rather, he made a choice in that moment to play it up for all of us. This was who my grandfather was, a man who loved his family and showed it in so many ways. So I invite you, grab a green mint, or several, while you are here today, and will join us in celebrating his amazing life. And I promise these ones aren't slimy. Grandpa was always coming up with new things for us grandkids. Even before the incredible Guys' Night Out, he had started the tradition of the Easter Road Rally. This started as a scavenger hunt around downtown Rockford for just me. He had taken many hours to put this together, communicating with several businesses and people around Rockford to help. From a cashier at a local gas station, to a local firefighter at the fire station, to the owner of Rockford Lanes. This whole experience was so much fun, and it is still something we do to this day, and we look forward to every year. It is no longer just me, rather all the grandkids that are participants. Now, little did we know at that time that we would be continuing this tradition for many years to come. And John, I'm glad I finally let you win this year. Grandpa was always there to support all of us grandkids in sports, music, theater, or whatever our passion was. This past year, he came to 3 weddings in 3 months, even after dealing with all of the 2020 craziness and health scares. For Grandpa, family was first. 2 things that will always stand out to me as lessons I learned from him. First, if you can be happy with where you are, never regret a moment in your past because it got you to where you are today. And secondly, the importance of family. Grandpa always said that one of the things that made him happiest in his life was sitting back and watching our crazy family and how close we all are. How each one of us had our individual paths and strengths, but we were always there for each other. This is something that I know we will continue in the many years ahead of us as our family continues to grow. Grandpa, I'll always remember watching the Red Wings games with you and our group text when we could not be together. I remember all the stories you would tell. I remember all the amazing time we would spend together and the lessons I've learned from you. You are an amazing man, someone I look up to you. Thank you for all the lifelong memories and for always loving each and every one of us. Thank you, Grandpa, for being a role model in so many ways to teach me and many others to reach for what we dream of, to stand for what we believe in, and to support ourselves. And most of all, to be a family that supports and loves one another. I look forward to continuing to share our many stories and adventures with those who are around now and the many more that are to come into our life. I'd like to take a moment and ask all the grandkids to come up at this time. I don't know if anyone can hear me in the back, but if we can raise the screen, that'd be great. This is the legacy that Grandpa has had and continues to have. Such a huge, huge part of it. He touched each and every one of us in so many different ways. He encouraged us, mentored us, and took time with each and every one of us. Thank you, Bobo. We love you, Bobo. Thank you.
Dwight, he was much more than a cousin to me, and he was much more than the sum of all his parts. Dwight was much more than a cousin to me. Considering all the children my grandparents had, by the third generation, there was just 3 of us cousins. My sister Diane, Dwight, and myself. Dwight's dad, Louis Pascal, named after his dad, was the oldest of 7 siblings. And like his brother Marcel Henri, or Hank, he was born in my grandmother's village of Oyer, France. And the relatives from France have sent their condolences to Joni and all the kids. There were many things my Uncle Louis and his son Dwight had in common. Uncle Louis was quiet. Dwight was quiet at the right times. They were both very smart, enjoyed people, both loved cutting-edge technology and gadgets. They enjoyed entertainment, particularly magic. They loved mental challenges, watching sports, and were neat and detailed, planning their next project or solution. They always enjoyed hosting and seeing the satisfaction of others. Depending on how people knew or interacted with Dwight, they may have seen just one slice of him. But there was a lot to Dwight and many pieces, and like I say, the sum was more than the whole. Dwight was very smart. Let's start off with, he was valedictorian at Frank S. Cody High School. His graduation year was 1963, and Detroit schools were pretty strong academically then and very large in size. That was not an everybody gets an A era. It was a true honor. I remember my father saying how proud he was of Dwight receiving the honor and then delivering a terrific speech on graduation night. At Wayne State, he was a math major, but like many smart people, school didn't do it for him. And like a lot of kids needing to work their way through school, like almost all of us Wayne Staters, focusing on employment was an easy transition. He had an amazing command of practical mathematics, coming up with complex answers in nanoseconds. He was great resolving complex business problems, either within a company or as an entrepreneur. Dwight was caring. Certainly each member of his family, Joni, co-workers, his mother-in-law, Mrs. B, and so many others know this. And I know it firsthand. Dwight and I were close, being nearby cousins. He had a knack for finding perfect Christmas presents for me, and visiting his house was an adventure of fun. Magic tricks, erector sets, trains, sporting goods, games, electronic gizmos, and more. Rather than ditching his little cousin, he engaged me in endless fun. When my father died when I was just 14, he kept a good eye on me, taking me to sporting events, comedy concerts, the auto show, spending time with me and picking me up to ride with him when he would go on sales calls. He also connected with me, connected periodic kid jobs for me as well. It was a time in Detroit where many poor choice paths could have been made, but Dwight helped me stay on the good path. When the Detroit riots hit in 1967, he quickly picked me up to go camping at Proud Lake. He was also very good to the Golden Girls, his mother Mill, and his aunts Alice and Lucille, plus his many charitable and nonprofit activities. When Dwight was doing all these acts of kindness for myself, He was only 20 years old. A bit rarer in our modern era, but a real tribute to Dwight. Dwight, as we all know, had a great sense of humor. Virtually everyone who has met him knows this very well. He's had that strong, debilitating laughter that could be triggered quite easily, and at times it took a long time to stop. He could find humor in many things, big, small, serious, or lighthearted. He could masterfully tell a good story that would get everyone laughing. He had a playful perspective to see and generate humor. Like when Lincoln was shot at the Ford Theater, he was taken across the street in Washington, D.C. for his care. That building at one point had a restaurant in it, and a restaurant leasee. So he would always bring up, I was at the Arby's where Lincoln died. A favorite foil of his humor was himself. Always a good indicator of a good sense of humor. Whether he was poking fun at his many maladies or being in a Lucy Ricardo type situation at work, he found humor all around him. Dwight had the winning pair of guts and tenacity. He had these traits in many of his inside jobs as well in many of his entrepreneurial adventures. This may not be the best version of Dwight's guts and tenacity, but it's right up there. He put his merchandising and business mind to work. He had the idea of getting a hold of those clear, oversized candy canes that many of you might have seen in countless bars filled with candy for charitable fundraisers. Dwight's vision was to use these filled with little girl barrettes, toys, toy jewelry for Christmas stocking stuffers. He assembled a dozen or so of these prototypes. As always, he thought big. He sent each one to a large retailer. While hoping to land a very large fish, he brought in a whale. Target called and wanted him to quickly get on the plane to Minneapolis headquarters to discuss his project. He was expert at producing a dozen prototypes, but when Target executive asked him, could he produce tens of thousands of them, Dwight, with a straight face and ice in his veins, said, no problem. This led to an hilarious adventure to Mr. Wu and a labyrinth of shops in LA's Chinatown, and ultimately delivering on the seemingly impossible promise to the Target executive. Dwight had an inquisitive and playful mind of a child. This is why he produced so much fun for children and grandchildren, from gifts to trips to the guys' weekend to scavenger hunts to ice cream gatherings. It was also useful to have that perspective in many of his business endeavors. And with a certain business creativity that he maintained, while many younger than him turned to that get off the lawn guy in the business and in life. It was always key to the fun that we had together. Dwight had many work relationships, and he found fun and developed a relationship throughout his work life. From the overhead fan king, who got him on the Blue Monster and other fancy golf courses, to his partner Doug, where they went on many golf vacations in or around a conference call. His years as a buyer for Meyer also created many relationships and fun stories. On the projects that he took on at the Ram, while others were long retired, brought him much community satisfaction. Dwight and I on the road to fun and adventure. There are so many items to bring up here, but let's start off with some trips. Trips to Chicago, Los Angeles, Cleveland, Las Vegas. Our multi-year run on our softball team, the Charlie Brown's All-Stars. Camping at Proud Lake and Canada's Pinery, including skee ball at Grand Bend. Bowling for many years in our youth bowling league, the Junior Moose Bowling League at the Garden Bowl, and frequent visits to Zakur's Novelty Shop across the street. Then we had the world-famous Baby Kushu road trip. We took back roads back and forth to Tennessee, and it was so much fun. We also shared riverfront fireworks and meeting Buffalo Bob Smith and all of Dutyville at one of the fireworks. learning the harmonica while driving the streets of Detroit. We did that. We got rear-ended by a guy named Dorsey Morcott. We even found that to be a hilarious experience. And then Vegas comedy and magic shows. But Dwight's real legacy is his treasured 55-year marriage to Joni. And I was honored to be a part of that wedding party on that historic day. Cheryl, Bonnie, Randy entered his life, and then their families grew. He loved giving me updates via phone, email, and in person. You could see the joy it brought him with every update. He was also happy to be a participant in the fun himself. He wasn't a passive reporter, but actually engaged, and I know he will be missed by many. But Dwight, he was much more than a cousin to me, and he was much more than the sum of all his parts. So with love, support, and sympathy to everyone in the family. Dwight, he was much more than a cousin to me, and he was much more than the sum of all his parts. Dwight was much more than a cousin to me. Considering all the children
So this is your chance if you'd like to share something to do so. Keep it brief, but we welcome you to come to the microphone and do that. And someone left their glasses up here, so yours, okay, you may come and get those if you like. I don't want someone else to abscond with them. Never mind.
How do you condense 57 years of knowing someone in a minute or two? Hard. I had the honor of knowing Dwight back in the day when we grew up in Detroit, Wayne State alums. It's a different era. We met at Wayne State at the Student Union, Mackenzie Hall, an era in which it was okay to major in pinochle for a couple of years because you could still get a good job afterwards and not have to worry about it. But Dwight went beyond that. He became quite the entrepreneur and business maven, if you will. Paul Travellini mentioned Dwight's acumen for being able to figure things out in his mind, and it was no joke. He could figure out things quicker than I could find the calculator on my phone. It was just amazing. I knew Dwight through social activities. I was part of his business adventures, the Candy Cane program. I met Mr. Wu as well in Chinatown. Mr. Wu's office, if you will, was not one that you'd want to visit in the evening in parts of the LA that we went to. But it was an interesting experience. Not only the hair pieces, but the jewelry stores and things. We went out and bought, 125 packages of 10 gummy worms in Los Angeles and wall walkers, 500,000 wall walkers. It was a great selling item for that much time, and then it was gone. But we were there at the right time because of Dwight. He had a vision that was uncanny. He had a way of looking to the future and being able to capitalize on it. I learned a lot from him. I think he learned a lot from me. We went on golf trips together, spontaneous. We were blessed to have wives like Joni and my wife Mary to say, go for that 2-week trip. And we just roamed through the state and, found
golf courses here and there, but, you know, knowing Dwight, he didn't want a top-notch hotel to stay in. We stayed in mom and poppers, if you will. So, and traveling with Dwight was always an experience because he didn't like to eat at chain restaurants. He liked places with local atmosphere. Well, I would call them dives, you know. But it was an experience. And whenever he came into town to see his aunts and Charles and Charles's wife, he would always stop and we'd meet at our little dive in the neighborhood, Astoria, Coney Island, and we'd share times, and he was anxious to tell us about his children and their accomplishments and his grandkids and the plans that he had for the trips and how excited he was after going to one of those trips or several of those trips up north to see the Red Wings at the training camp. And you know, we went on road trips all over the place to Toronto and, you know, Washington, D.C., and skiing up in Blue Mountain in Canada. It's hard to believe, but Dwight, yes, skied. You can imagine the style he had. Look out below, here I come. But it was a good time. Dwight eventually gravitated to elsewhere. He lived in Cleveland for a while. His health became, you know, problematical for him, but every time he pulled through. And the group of the gang, I was one of the group of the gang, the group, 6 of us, you know, and we did everything together. Our families developed together. We went to each other's weddings. We celebrated babies and anniversaries and you name it. And it was the Pratts that always got people together at their house, and it kept the group together and alive. And it's sad to see him go. And when Dick died, the very first of the 6, we were shocked. You know, the group trembled. You know, are we fallible? You know, are we not immortal? But we quickly rationalized it by saying, well, he was a heavy smoker, didn't believe in the science that, you know, smoking could kill you and it won't happen to us. And then one day out of the blue, the phone rang and Denny died. And wow, Denny was the little Energizer Bunny. He was the planner. He planned the trips. And now Dwight. And he loved his children so much. He loved you, Joan. I got to know him on those trips. I got to know him as a person. And when he didn't think he was going to make it through, when he was in the hospital, he sent me a letter, 2 pages long, little print, both sides. And it was so moving. He told me how much he appreciated my friendship and all the things we did. And I'm going to miss him. There's a hole in my heart. And well, Dwight had lost confidence in the church. I don't believe God lost confidence in Dwight. I'm convinced that the hand of God came down and guided him through this last endeavor of his. And he had his way of saying goodbye to everyone, and he wanted to make sure, you know, that everyone knew that he appreciated their friendship. And now the group is 3. I'm one of 3. And I know somewhere in the future there will be a call out of the blue, unexpectedly, that one of us has passed. And I will either be one of 2 or one of 4, waiting for the whole group to get together. Dwight, you were a great friend. Rest in peace.
Bobo was a great grandpa, and I really liked him as my friend. I would really like to remember him. So I got this watch that I really liked. So, and when I was little, I loved going over to his house and watching TV and spending time with him. I really liked like making jokes with him sometimes. And you're probably surprised that I'm the littlest one here and I'm standing up. Yes, I really loved him. He was a great grandpa.
Okay, because I'm already standing here, I didn't intend to come up, but Daniel talked a little bit about the Easter Road rallies. Oh, I'm Randy. I'm Dad's son, in more ways than one. But Daniel talked about the Easter Road rallies, and I didn't realize so the reason I'm here right now is because in true dad fashion, I'm going to correct Daniel and let him know how it really goes. No. So when I was little, probably Asher's age, my dad would write little riddles and send me on my own little road rally. So he had a clue that would lead to an egg, and then there I'd find another clue that would lead to another egg. And he's passed that on to his grandchildren. And I didn't realize, because I was younger than my sisters, that was for me. I love you, Dad.
That's a tough act to follow, my man. My name's Mark. I didn't see Al very much. I've known him since 1998. He heard me on the radio. I fell into some music. We used to do Sinatra tributes. And I was on the radio, and he looked me up, and he called me up. I had no idea who he was. He said, "My name's Al." He goes, "I'd like to do a little spoof on Sinatra music. I'm gonna do something because the Cleveland Browns were leaving Cleveland, and he was all upset about it. He didn't like the owner, so he said, let's do a couple songs, and would you meet me in the studio, and I want to rewrite some lyrics." And I said, he just was such a nice man, I couldn't say no, and I said, sure. So, he's in Grand Rapids, I'm in the Detroit area, so we met, and it was like, fell in love with the guy instantly, and such good friends through the years. Even though we didn't see each other a lot, he'd call me up and he'd say, "Mark Al Pratt." I'd say, "Mr. Al Pratt, how are you?" And we'd meet for lunch and we'd talk about all kinds of things. I mean, things you don't talk about with people, about life and death and God and family and everything. And is there a God, and what's man's purpose? And I mean, we just had these great conversations that were so stimulating and thought-provoking. And your dad was, he was not one to just go with the flow. He had his own thinking, and he was like, this doesn't make sense. Everybody's supposed to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, and that doesn't make sense to me. And I said, it doesn't make sense to me either. Well, we'll find out something, and we're going to be on the earth, heaven. He goes, well, I sure hope I'm worthy to. I said, Al, listen, my man, if you're not worthy, there's nobody worthy, man. I mean, you're just a wonderful person. And but he would always, we get into these deep conversations, but it would always come back to his family. He'd always talk about his kids and always talk about his grandkids, always talk about how happy he was and how if I died tomorrow, I'm a blessed man. I couldn't ask for anything more. But he said it all came down to his wife. And he said I'd be nothing without my Joni. He said, he goes, that woman puts up with me and I don't know how. And I said, you seem pretty easy to be to put up with to me, Al. He's like, he says, no, trust me, I'm not that easy to get along with. But anyway, he called me, and it was a tough phone call because he said, listen, I want you to do a song at my funeral for my wife. I'm going to try and get through this. I mean, how do you say no? He said, because that woman's everything to me. Without her, my family wouldn't be possible. Nothing would be possible. So please sing this song to her. Do your best. I want her to hear this. I want it to come from me to her. And I said, okay, Al. So I'm going to attempt. I wrote the lyrics down because I don't want to mess them up. But this is what Al requested. And it goes like this. Do we have a band here anywhere? She got a band. That was a nice song, by the way. It was sweet. Anyway, here goes. All my life is a paper, once plain, pure, and white, till you moved with your pen, changing moods now and then, till the balance was right. And then you added some music. Every note was in place. Anybody could see all the changes in me by the look on my face. And you decorated my life, created a world where dreams are apart. Yeah, you decorated my life by painting your love all over my heart. You decorated my life like a rhyme with no reason in an unfinished song. There was no harmony, life meant nothing to me until you came along. And then you brought out some colors. What a gentle surprise. Now I'm able to see all the things life can be from the look in your eyes. And you decorated my life, created a world where dreams are apart. Yes, you decorated my life by painting your love all over my heart. You decorated my life. So that was from Al. And I have to say, Joni, I can speak probably for everybody here that we're glad you decorated his life, made that man what he was, because in turn he was able to decorate all our lives. And I know he decorated mine with his friendship. And Joni asked me to do one last song in behalf of her husband because your dad was a very headstrong guy. He was no pushover. I mean, he was so sweet, but he wasn't convinced about anything. It had to make sense, and he had his ways, and he did things right, always for the good of his family. It was always for the good of his family. And once again, he always told me it wasn't possible if it wasn't for Joni. Not even close. So anyways, this is a song that your grandmother By the way, you grandkids, you something else, man. He done good. You guys done good, man. Anyway, and now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full, I've traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do. I saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all and I grew tall and did it my way. I loved, I laughed, I cried, I had my fill, my share of losing. And now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way. Oh no, no, not Al, he did it his way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say those things that he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. The record shows I took the blows and did it my way. He did it his way. So it's not goodbye forever. Al and I talked about how it'd be kind of a cruel joke if this is all there was. So there's got to be more. We believe that makes sense. So I'll just say it's, he may not be perfect, but he was perfectly Al, you know. And I just say that it's not goodbye forever. It's just so long for now. So it was an honor to be here. Thank you.
You thought you had a tough act to follow. Some people have mentioned Grandpa wasn't a very religious person, but I don't know if it's for me or for him or for somebody sitting here, but I felt the need to pray here. So if you'd pray with me. Father God, thank you for creating us in your image, for giving us all unique gifts and talents, personalities. Thank you for loving us, for giving us the ability to know and to love others. Thank you for this man of many names, Dwight, Dad, Al, Grandpa, Bobo. Thank you for his life that we were so blessed to share with him throughout the years. Thank you for the compassion, the support, the devotion, and all of the love that we felt from him. Thank you for the gifts and the talents that you gave him and the unique ways he used them to bless everyone here. God, we know that ultimately death is a result of us falling short of your standard, your holy standard. We know that we all make mistakes, but you offer us a way out through your sacrifice for us, and we're so thankful for that sacrifice. And it's because of this gift, this sacrifice, that we can have a hope beyond the grave. So we ask you now to help us and to comfort us. Please give us the strength to leave our loved one in your care, as you are our hope for eternal life. Please give us comfort as we learn to live without him here with us physically. We know that even when we walk through the darkest valleys, we know that you are there with us, comforting us and guiding us. So we thank you for this man, for the family that he helped forge, for the friends he made, and for all of the lives he impacted. Thank you for the stories, the laughters, and all of the memories that we will cherish all of our lives. We pray all of these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
First of all, on behalf of the Pratt family, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, for your care, your support, and your concern. I'd also like, on their behalf, to invite you to continue time of fellowship and a light luncheon immediately following the dismissal. We're going to start dismissing from the back, inviting folks to come up, and if you'd like to spend a moment here with the family or take a moment before you walk into the luncheon, we're going to have you folks exit out this door. I'd ask you to go ahead and fix your plate, and the family's going to take just a few moments here privately after everybody's dismissed, and then they'll be over to join you. Again, on their behalf, I thank you so much for being here today, and Jan's going to start dismissing. Thank you.